Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Surah Al-Maa'idah, Ayah 27. قال الله تعالى: واتلو عليهم نبأ ابني آدم بالحق إذ قربا قربانا فتقبل من أحدهما ولم يتقبل من الآخر قال لأقتلنك قال إنما يتقبل الله من المتقين. So after Allah Jalla wa Ala informed us about the episode of Banu Israel and their cowardice and the sad ending, but one from which we may learn lessons, he now turns his attention to yet another episode, also with a sad ending, but nevertheless equally as didactic. He says, Watlu, from tala yatlu, tilawatan, which means to recite, the naba, meaning the news, of two sons of Adam. And the Mufassirun say the two sons referred to are by the names of Habil and Qabil. As for this word Adam, where does that come from? There are some suggestions given. So some say it comes from the word adma, which means uswa, or example, as in an example to follow. Others say it comes from the word udma, which means ulfa, which is when you're sociable and agreeable with each other. And it is also said that it comes from the word adim, as in adim of the earth, meaning the face of the earth. And this is because he was created from the earth. And Allah Jalla wa Ala knows best. So he says, make tilawah of this story bil haqq, with truth, meaning without any distortion. So the truth is that which accords with reality. He says when they offered a qurban, this is anything which you do to draw closer to Allah Jalla wa Ala. So it could be sacrificing an animal, but it could be fasting, it could be giving charity, anything by which you draw closer to Allah Jalla wa Ala. So they both offered a sacrifice. It was accepted from one of them and not accepted by the other. The Mufassirun say that it was accepted from Habil and not accepted from Qabil. So the one from whom it was not accepted, that is Qabil, he said to his brother Habil, I will surely kill you. And then Habil replied that Allah only accepts from those who have taqwa, muttaqin. So what we mean by muttaqin here are those people who offer their acts of ibadah with a sincere intention, that they're doing it solely for Allah Jalla wa Ala, not for themselves. Of course, for the Muslim nowadays, the muttaqin are those who have the proper niyyah, which is ikhlas to Allah, and they work in accordance with the sunnah of the Prophet. This is the muttaqi of today's day and age. Okay, so the obvious question about this ayah is, what is this all about? The story behind it, as found in the tafasir, is that Habil had a sister, which was a twin sister, and Qabil had his twin sister. And Adam a.s. ordered these men to marry the sister of their brother. Now, of course, they're all brothers and sisters at that stage in time, but they are not all twins. So the non-twins would marry each other. Now that would have been okay then, because the ahkam then were different. Now the problem here was that the sister of Qabil was pretty, and the sister of Habil was not so pretty. So whereas Habil was content to marry the sister of Qabil, who was pretty, Qabil on the other hand wanted to marry his own twin sister, and not the sister of Habil, because she was not as pretty. So Qabil insisted that he marry his twin sister, because he has most right to her, even though the rule was that this is not allowed. So Adam a.s. said, both of you offer a sacrifice, and whoever's sacrifice is accepted, then he gets to marry the sister of Qabil. So they both made a sacrifice. Okay, now what was this sacrifice? As it is not explicitly mentioned in the Quran, we find the tafsir says Qabil was an owner of crops, and so he took a heap of food of low quality and offered it up. And Habil was the owner of sheep, and so he slaughtered the best quality ram which he had. The intentions were different. As for Qabil, his intention was, no one is to marry my sister except for me, and the intention of Habil was that he's doing this for the pleasure of Allah. They placed their respective sacrifices on top of a mountain, and Adam a.s. made dua, and a fire or some kind of lightning came down and struck the sacrifice of Habil, which was the slaughtered ram. This was a sign that his sacrifice is accepted. As for the sacrifice of Qabil, the lightning did not strike it, and this was a sign that his sacrifice is not accepted. Now, of course, this enraged Qabil, and out of jealousy he vowed to kill his own brother. Now Allah Jalla wa Ala orders our Prophet to recite this ayah on them. Now, who is them? Well, them is general. It means all people, but in particular the Yahud. And this is to prove that the Prophet is a genuine Prophet, because this story would be in their scriptures as well. So it is to establish evidence against the Yahud. Ayah 28. لَإِن بَسَطْتَ إِلَيَّ يَدَكَ لِتَقْتُلَنِي مَا أَنَا بِبَاسِطٍ يَدِيَ إِلَيْكَ لِأَقْتُلَكَ إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهَ رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ. He says, if you stretch out your hand to kill me, meaning if you intend to kill me, I will not stretch out my hand to kill you. Indeed, I fear Allah, the Rabbul Alameen. So this is the statement of the better of the brothers, who is Habil. Ayah 29. Inni uridu an tabu'a bi'ithmi wa ithmika fatakuna min ashabi an-nari wa dhalika jaza'u al-zalimin. Again, Habil is speaking. He says, indeed, I want that you should tabu'a, which means to return. So he's saying, I want that you should come back with my sin and your sin, and so you should be from the dwellers of the fire. And that is the jaza, the reward or the recompense of the zalimin, of the wrongdoers. Ayah 30. فَطَوَّعَتْ لَهُ نَفْسُهُ قَتْلَ أَخِيهِ فَقَتَلَهُ فَأَصْبَحَ مِنْ الْخَاسِرِينَ. So the key word here is طَوَّعَتْ, which means زَيَّنَتْ وَسَهَّلَتْ, to adorn and to make easy. So his self, meaning the self of Qabil, adorned for him and made easy for him the murder of his brother, and so he murdered him. فَأَصْبَحَ, then he became from the khasirin, from the losers. In this world he angered his parents, and in the akhirah he has angered Allah Jalla wa Ala. So he lost both this world and the hereafter. As for how he murdered his brother, then it has been said, and Allah knows best, that Shaitan taught Qabil how to murder. Shaitan took a bird and crushed it between two stones. And they say this is how Qabil murdered his brother. When Habil was asleep, Qabil crushed his head with a stone. But in any case, the detail of this is not so important. The point is, he murdered his brother, and that this was the first murder amongst mankind. Ayah 31. فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ غُرَابًا يَبْحَثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ لِيُرِيَهُ كَيْفَ يُوَارِي سَوْءَةَ أَخِيهِ قَالَ يَا وَيْلَتَى أَعْجَزْتُ أَنْ أَكُونَ مِثْلَ هَذَا الْغُرَابِ فَأُوَارِيَ سَوْءَةَ أَخِي فَأَصْبَحَ مِنْ النَّادِمِينَ. So he says that Allah ba'atha, sent a ghurab, a crow, يَبْحَثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. It was digging in the earth with its beak to show Qabil how to bury or conceal the corpse of his brother. The saw'a refers to the corpse. Qabil said, Ya waylata, oh woe is me, or destruction be upon me. I am not even able to be as this crow and hide the corpse of my brother. Ajastu, the verb is ajiza ya'jazu, to be unable to do something, as opposed to qadir, to be able to do something. The ayah says, then he became from the nadimin, from those who regret. Some mufassirin say that this crow buried another dead crow, thus showing Qabil how to bury the corpse of his brother. So here in this ayah, we have the first burial taking place. Now, as for being from those who regret, what did he regret exactly? He did not regret the actual murder per se. What he regretted was that he did not benefit from that murder, in that his whole family were angry with him. Some others say that he regretted the fact that he had to carry his brother and bury him. But in any case, he did not regret the actual murder, because regret is what tawbah is all about, and he did not make tawbah. And so, as the Prophet ﷺ said, no innocent soul is killed except that a share of this blood will be on the first son of Adam, meaning Qabil, because he was the first one to make murder a sunnah. So reflecting on these ayats, we take the importance of the stories of the people of the past, not just so we can marvel at them, but so that we may take lessons from them and learn from their mistakes. We also take that when you tell a story, it needs to be accurate, word for word accurate, because Allah says bil-haq, with truth. We may also take that whatever Allah narrates to us from the stories, then it is bil-haq, it is with truth. We also take that the matter is not that you are performing righteous actions. Rather, the matter revolves around whether your righteous actions are accepted or not. Imagine a lifetime of righteous actions to what appears righteous to the people, and yet they are not accepted. What would be the point? So we must therefore always endeavor to have our actions accepted. And how will they be accepted? You need to cleanse your niyyah, your intention out, that you're doing it solely for the sake of Allah Jalla wa Ala, and not for any other sake. And also, it needs to be for us at least in accordance with the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Because if it is not in accordance with the sunnah, then it becomes a bid'ah, which is of course rejected and in the fire. So work on your ikhlas. Make dua to Allah Jalla wa Ala to grant you ikhlas in all matters. It cannot be overstated. Can we take from this ayah that the acts of ibadah of evil people is not accepted? The answer is no. A person can be a complete evildoer, but he performs one act of ibadah with pure sincerity and in accordance with the sunnah, and that this action will be accepted, because at the time of performing the act of ibadah, he was a muttaqi, and Allah accepts from the muttaqeen. We may also take that from the descriptions of Allah is taqabbul, He accepts certain actions. Now that does not mean that His name is al-mutaqabbil, the acceptor, but rather one of His descriptions is taqabbul, because descriptions are broader than His names. When Habil says that Allah only accepts from the muttaqeen, is he praising himself by essentially saying that he is from the muttaqeen? The answer is no. Rather, he is simply giving an information item, or he's declaring something, that Allah only accepts from the muttaqeen. That is true. Now, if he happens to be from the muttaqeen, then be that as it may, as for him, he is only declaring something which is true. In these ayat, we also notice that Habil did not defend himself. So do we say the one who wants to kill you, you just let them kill you? The answer is that if it is true about what we said, quoting some of the mufassirin, that Qabil murdered Habil in his sleep, crushing his head with a stone, then obviously Habil could not have defended himself. So therefore, of course, we cannot take that you just let a person murder you. Rather, you do defend yourself. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ ordered us. The only exception to that is in the case of civil strife and fitna, where Muslims are fighting each other and killing each other because of political reasons. Now, in a case like this, the Prophet gave us some guidance. If in defending yourself and killing your would-be murderer would lead to an increase or aggravated fitna, and an increase in bloodshed, then it is better not to defend yourself and be like the better of the two sons of Adam, meaning the one who is killed, not the killer. And this is only to prevent a greater bloodshed and greater fitna. And this is of course a judgment call. One has to see whether defending oneself would lead to a greater civil strife or not. As for in usual cases where defending yourself does not lead to a greater harm, then of course you've got to defend yourself. And that includes defending your dependents, so wife and children and parents and so on. We also note the virtue of Habil in that he did not kill his brother because he feared Allah the Rabbul Alameen, as he clearly states. He did not want to attack his brother because he's weak or unable, no, but because of a more noble reason. It's similar to if someone abuses you when you're fasting, do not abuse them back, but rather say that I am fasting. We also take that murder is from the causes which enters you into the fire unless you repent, and that it is the most serious of all sins after shirk. And we also take that Allah Jalla wa Ala can even send an animal to teach a human being. And we also take that in burying the corpse you have to hide it or cover it or conceal it, as the whole corpse of a human being is actually an awrah which has to be covered. Now it is permissible to look at the face of the deceased and indeed to kiss the deceased, as Abu Bakr did with the Prophet ﷺ. But when we say awrah, we mean with respects to the kafan on the corpse. It needs to cover the whole corpse. We may also take a more general point that committing sins does inevitably lead to some form of regret. And this is just some of the punishment of committing that sin in this world. We notice this ayah talks about the first murder of mankind. It also talks about the first burial of mankind. Other parts of the Quran speak about the first man, of course, and the first woman. It also speaks about the first instance of language amongst humans, when Allah Jalla wa Ala taught Adam the names of everything. But maybe the most important lesson to take is that jealousy is the oldest vice in the book. From the very first sons of Adam alayhi salam, it existed amongst mankind. And look at the result, murder. And it is worth knowing that you are the greatest victim of your own jealousy. Just like Qabil was actually the greatest victim of his own jealousy. Just look at how every murder ever committed will be upon him. So one must control their jealousy, and this is by realizing that when Allah Jalla wa Ala grants a ni'mah to anyone, then that is His will. It is not for us to oppose it. Opposing the will of Allah and hating it is like hating Allah as your Rabb. And we must therefore understand that there is always a reason and a wisdom why Allah decrees what He decrees, why He has not given you what you desired, and He has given it to others. Part of being a Muslim is to submit to the decree of Allah. Remember that Islam is all about submission. In addition to that, the person who has a ni'mah which you do not have, do the opposite of what your jealousy urges you to do. So make dua for such a person to increase in barakah. This is the opposite of trying to deprive him of his barakah. And be happy and content with what Allah Jalla wa Ala has granted you, because there are so many more people out there in the world who are not as privileged as you are. هذا والله أعلم.